This episode of Magic Hour is slightly different from our previous episodes. One of our YouTube comments requested an additional deep dive into Magic and the associated ecosystems, which we know as cartridges. This is the first episode of that series, which focuses on the activities and gameplay of Bridgeworld. It's broken up into different segments, and we tried to cover as much information as possible. If you have any feedback, you can always leave us a comment on YouTube, Twitter, or reach out in our Discord. Thanks for listening.
Hi, I'm Alum.
Hi, this is Dionysus.
Hi, I'm Kyle.
And hi, this is Braiker, and you're listening to Magic Hour, a podcast about all things Treasure DAO. What is Magic? Magic is the natural resource of the Treasure Metaverse. It powers on NFTs and turns them from fantasy into productive yield-bearing assets.
Yeah, but I feel like Magic is more than that. I feel like it's also like fundamentally it's like a decentralized finance coin. And while it powers the metaverse, like how you obtain it, everything leading up to it, everything in the Bridgeworld is kind of like an instrument to just obtain more magic. It's like a loop.
Yeah, and the idea is that the more magic is used, the greater value it has. So you want as many different ecosystems using magic as possible. So the idea that these are all different cartridges, if you will, in the grand scheme of this Nintendo system that has been described as, then it will only continue to grow and provide more value to the magic token in general because all these different cartridges are using the magic token.
Yeah, again, it seems like it's part of this like flywheel where, say, no one is building on Magic, right? It becomes less valuable. So the value is really created in not only the original like flagship product like Bridgeworld, but it's also kind of necessitates that the builders come and also make new cartridges to use that analogy, right? Interesting. It's hard for me to wrap my head around this in a few ways because being a part of this ecosystem, I'm so focused on like playing the game and like looking at the Magic token price that I forget about its like kind of like more philosophical like purpose, right?
And it's easy to feel that way. Anyone in your shoes would. And it's about making it seem like it's not something that is of value and is used in these games, and you just want more magic so you can play the game more, right?
So let's talk about that. Like, let's talk about how you want magic because you want to play the game. So how do you obtain magic in the first place, right? Well, it's a DeFi coin, so we get it through.
Well, it's found on the Arbitrum chain, right? So first off, you have to bridge some Ethereum to the Arbitrum chain. In order to do that, there's many different ways, and we'll put the link to that in the show notes. But the best way to find out how to do that is go to startwithmagic.com. It's that simple. But coming back to how we obtain it, so you bridge your Ethereum over to Arbitrum, and then you swap it for magic.
We swap it with magic, and then there are multiple ways to be earning magic. Like, so obviously you purchase it to have a stack, but then you can go and place it in the harvester, right? And you can have like this like proof of work, like you're putting your money to work to then receive more magic as a reward, right?
Yeah, I would almost call it proof of stake because basically you're staking your magic in the Atlas mine, which in theory we're working in the mines, but really it's just being staked there. But what we haven't even touched upon yet is you can get more value out of staking your magic by owning a bunch of different treasures. You can stake your magic and earn interest on that staked magic in the form of more magic. And that's what everybody wants to do. But when you mine it, you have to lock it. How long have you locked it for, Dion?
I've locked for a few different time periods, but right now I have locked for a full year.
Right on, 12 months. I think mine is 3 months locked right now.
Nice. Yeah, I put 5,000 in, so I don't paper hand. Honestly, that's the main reason.
There are how many staking time periods?
I think like 6 in total. Let's see. There's 2 weeks, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, and then 1 year. But also it's important to know that it's not that these are released on vesting schedules. So 1 month is released over 7 days from unlock. 3 months is 14 days. 6 months is 30 days. And then 12 months is 45 days. So it's not going to be some huge unlocking event for everyone that unlocked for a year. It's going to be a slow, gradual progression 45 days out.
That's pretty crazy and smart at the same time, because then people can't just get out and paper hand.
Exactly. I mean, for all of you who were around for the January 25th unlock for the 3 month, that was a huge bullish unlocking event that was highly anticipated. So I think that they wanted to kind of avoid some of that anticipation and anxiety over a similar event moving into the future.
And also, when it comes to staking, there has to be a minimum amount of magic staked in order for everybody to receive the maximum amount of emissions.
Yeah, and the staking rate needs to be 60% of circulating supply for 100% magic emissions, which we hit almost a couple of days after. I mean, I don't know if I would call that immediate, but that was extremely fast, I thought.
I would say so too. And it's very interesting. We're at 71% right now, which is more than the minimum of 60%, 10% more. I wonder, are we able to see how much of that is 12 months? We probably can, right?
I'm pretty confident. You know what? I'll see if I can put that in the show notes. I'm pretty confident I've seen some tools that provide that information.
We've covered getting magic, and we've covered staking magic to earn more, but is there a limit on how much magic there can be? No. 350 million tokens is the maximum supply of magic. But there's halvenings, similar to the way Bitcoin has halvenings. And if you're not even familiar with halvenings, that basically means that over a set period of time, the amount of a token released is going to diminish by 50% every time over the same amount of periods. Their halvening occurs every year as opposed to Bitcoin's 4 years.
So it's a little bit more accelerated, but that's not a bad thing, especially considering you're trying to incentivize people to come in and build. And if magic is the native token, you want enough magic to go around. For instance, Battlefly, right? Battlefly, you needed, there were 30,000 mints where you need 5 magic in your wallet. If we didn't have enough magic in the ecosystem, then it would become a pretty big barrier to entry to actually mint Battlefly, right? So that actually makes sense.
So that basically is what the magic token is. And now let's talk about the various cartridges, the ecosystem that use magic. First, we'll start with Bridgeworld. Bridgeworld is a game of strategic commerce, trade, and domination, which sits at the center of the treasure metaverse. So, one thing we have to understand is that Bridgeworld is this almost hub of the treasure ecosystem. The idea that everybody is coming to Bridgeworld from all other ecosystems. And I like that as a story because it conveys the effort that we've all put in to get here, right? We've all bridged ourselves from Ethereum over to Arbitrum to play this game. And so, where's the first place you go? You go to the hub, the place where it all starts. And here in Bridgeworld, we can do many things, but it all starts with Legions.
Yeah, Legions are the character in the game.
That's what all the players play with. What are the different ways we can play the game in Bridgeworld?
There are a few different ways to play the game in Bridgeworld, and it entirely depends on your specific how involved you want to be with the game, and also your risk tolerance. You can summon, craft, or quest. And all of these things require, some of these things require resources, both magic and or NFTs, and they all require your time, your Legion to be locked in for a certain amount of time, which has varied throughout the entire lifespan of Bridgeworld. Which of the 3 activities do you want to jump into?
Well, before we jump into that, there are a couple other things that you can do in Bridgeworld, one of which is the Atlas Mine. We covered that in an earlier part of this episode when we discussed the magic token. But when you stake your magic, you stake it in the Atlas Mine. So there's also the barracks you can go to where you can hire your recruit.
Mhm.
And then there is the Starlight Temple where the Starlight Temple is where you would augment your legion.
Yeah, wow, I didn't even realize it was open. That's so cool.
Yeah. All right,
Yeah,
so...
okay.
Originally, summoning was 7 days to summon a legion and then 7-day cooldown. Auxiliary legions could only summon once, and Genesis legions could summon summon unlimited auxiliary legions. And it was 100% success rate.
Mhm.
So now that created a whole lot of auxiliary legions in the ecosystem. Not a good thing. What the game managers did was they patched the game.
The new changes implemented by the game devs allow summoning success to be a function of how many people are crafting. And it's pretty complicated because originally, to Braiker's point, a bunch of people were summoning because it was the highest expected value. In this game of strategy and commerce, you want to maximize your profit. And so you would summon with your either auxiliary legion or your Genesis legion, and you would go sell it on the marketplace because they were selling at a premium for what you paid to summon said auxiliary legion. That was a huge inflationary lever that was pulled and allowed for auxiliary legions to both flood the market and flood the game.
Right. And so they had to change the rules of the game in order to stop the flood of the market. And so now,
exactly.
in the update, they've updated to where Genesis legions still can summon unlimited legions, but there are a couple caveats here. Auxiliary legions can also still only summon one legion, but they have different caveats. First, we have to note that now, because there's a success rate tied to the crafting, you're not always going to get a summoned legion when you try to summon.
Exactly. So we moved sub 100% success rate. We've actually moved sub 50% success rate. What success rate are we at now?
20%.
Jesus.
So that means 80% failure. And also, they increased the length of the summoning time. So now it's 10 days. But on the other end, they've decreased the amount of time that you have to wait to get your legion back if you fail. So previously, it would be a 14-day turnaround. No, actually, for summoning, it would be you would have it back right away though, right?
Precisely, yeah.
After you summoned, you had your legion to do whatever you want with.
Oh, no.
Yes. So your summoning legion after 7 days would be able to do stuff.
Oh, after 7 days, yes, precisely.
Now you have to wait 10 days to find out even if you have success, and if you fail, you have to wait another 3 days before you can do anything.
I believe it's actually reversed. So you can find out if you have success at the very beginning.
Ah.
Yeah.
Now it makes sense. Sense. Okay. So the game is that you're trying to summon a legion. You might succeed. If you succeed, it's going to take 10 days. And then after 10 days, you'll have your legion available to use again. And, oh, by the way, the newly summoned legion has to wait 7 days before it can even start doing what it needs to do. We call that summoning fatigue.
Precisely.
But if you fail, you only have to wait 3 days, which I think is a pretty good solution. And I wouldn't feel too bad about that.
Yeah, it just makes you do the opportunity cost analysis for, well, would I rather be doing any of the other actions available in Bridgeworld?
Right, and we're going to get to those in a second, but we have to talk about the price of summoning, because in Bridgeworld, this is really the one that costs the most. This is the big magic sink.
Yeah, it is.
Because the crafting doesn't cost any magic, right? You only have to have staked magic. And
I think
questing doesn't cost any magic.
Questing is free. I think crafting does require it. There's a 5 magic cost associated with crafting, so extremely low.
Got it. Okay.
But it's still there.
Okay. So coming back to summoning, the cost to summon for Genesis legions is 300, and the cost for auxiliary legions is 500. That's a static amount. But we've talked about this before, the Genesis legions have unlimited summons, and there's a caveat there. After 5 summons, you then have to start staking some magic in the liquidity pools. And where can we stake that magic?
Where we would stake that on Sushi Swap, right?
Is it only limited to Sushi Swap?
That's a good question. Even on the Treasure Ducks website, they show like, where can I stake? Yeah, the SLP tokens in the Magic Weave SLP would be, I think, on Sushi Swap. I actually don't know. Do you stake, Breaker?
I do not.
I feel like a fool. I feel like I should be, and I don't know.
With the update of Summoning 2.0, we talk about there's going to be success rates. Now, they've given us percentages on the various results, as well as a rare reward of Azurite dust, which you might get, and that's 0.01% regardless of who's doing the summoning. But the auxiliary commons, uncommons, and rares have very low percentage chances of getting rare auxiliary legions. In fact, only auxiliary rares can summon another auxiliary rare.
Huh. I didn't even know that. That explains why I'm not getting any.
And then auxiliary uncommons only have a 5% to summon an uncommon. And auxiliary commons can only summon another auxiliary common, which I think is fair.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
So we're really limiting the amount of auxiliary rares and uncommons that are hitting the market. As far as Genesis goes, the commons, the specials, the uncommons, the rares, and the legendaries all have different summoning percentages, and we encourage you to go check those out on the treasure docs, but we don't need to get into them right here. You can, however, increase the odds of getting rares from summoning by using small, medium, and large prisms, which are tokens that you earn through questing, which we're going to get into next. We already covered summoning. Let's talk about questing. So we do questing at the Ivory Tower. So when you're looking at the screen, you click on the Ivory Tower, and we can start our quest. And Dion, why do we quest?
Well, I personally quest because it turns my legions, regardless of being Genesis or auxiliary, into productive assets. I receive rewards for my quests. Yeah.
We quest because we wanna have a productive asset, and what are we producing? What am I getting out of this questing? Why am I doing it?
So there are two types of rewards that you're receiving. Two types of NFT rewards. The first one is a consumable reward, and there are 3 consumables that you receive, that you have a potential to receive from questing. One is something called Prism Shards, the other is Essence of Starlight, and then the third is a Universal Lock. Now, all of these have different drop rates, and I might be confusing the two, Breaker, but I think Essence of Starlight has a 100% drop rate, right? So regardless of doing this, you're going to receive something.
Yes, I believe that's correct. I know that I always get Essence of Starlight when I quest.
Yeah, it's not 100%. You're just really lucky.
Right. I believe you actually get both Prism Shards and Essences of Starlight, although you may not get the same amounts each time. I feel like sometimes I've gotten 3 Prism Shards.
Yeah.
Two Prism Shards, excuse me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. Oh, okay. I'm less familiar with that. So I understand that Prism Shards have a different drop rate. I think that they're around 50%. So half the time you're going to get them, the other half you're not. Mm. And then Universal Locks, which are extremely rare drops, have a 0.01% chance for a drop. So if you get one of these, count yourself lucky.
Yeah, I have done numbers of quests already, and I have not gotten a single lock or what's the other one?
Yeah, I've never received a Universal Lock. So
that's the only one, right?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Sorry. So but you can also get treasures, right?
Well, yeah, that's the second type of NFT reward, and that is, to your point, treasures, of which there are 5 tiers, and each of those tiers have a percentage to drop. So tier 5 is the most common tier, and then tier 1 is the least common tier. We're not going to go into the specifics of percentage drops, but just know tier 5 is much more common to receive than tier 1. And I even want to say it's like a percentage of a percentage. You have a 20% chance, I think, of receiving a treasure, but that might have even decreased with the recent patch. No, it didn't. It didn't. So you have a 20% chance of receiving a treasure. So 1 in 5 for every time you quest. And then you have, I think, like an 80 or 85% chance, like around that. These are just rough numbers of receiving like a tier 5 and then like a sub 1% chance for receiving a tier 1. But these quest rewards are also variable depending on your difficulty of quest. There are 3 levels of difficulty. There's easy, medium, and hard. Not necessarily creative with those names, but nonetheless, Braiker, have you done a medium quest? I'm actually still lagging behind. I'm only doing easy quests.
I do have one of my auxiliary commons is a level 3 at this point. They have 120 experience. So they're actually, you get 20 experience at level 3 per quest. So in levels 1 and 2, you only get 10 experience per quest. And so getting to level 2 is fairly easy, but then getting from level 2 to level 3, I think you have to go on 20 quests. Or maybe it's 15. No, I think it's 20. It's 15 at level 3. To level 4, but getting from level 2 to level 3 was the most quests that I've had to do so far. And so now I'm at level 3 and I'm getting 20 experience per quest. So it's only going to take 15 questing events rather than 20 at levels 1 and 2, but it takes longer. So for my level 3, it takes 2 days to quest, whereas level 1s and 2s take 1 day to quest.
Got it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there's right now, the only benefit, again, right now, keywords here, the only benefit of being like a level 3 is the ability to do medium quests, right?
Yes. Right now, you can only do medium quests as a level 3.
Got it.
They have little questing progress bars too. I actually have one guy who's about to hit level 2. My Riverman just hit level 2. And then I have 2 others that are almost at level 2, 130 and 140, and then one guy who's at 90. So they're starting to climb.
Yeah, no, I like it a lot. I kind of do appreciate the grind aspect of it. Like, it does, like, this is just like in playing a normal video game. You do have to level up. You have to move on to the bigger and better things, but you got to put in the work to do so.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of fun. I guess fun isn't the right word. It feels like it's progressing. I wish that I could do like a little more automation here. And maybe I got to figure out how to write maybe a bot to do this kind of stuff for me. But that's a conversation for another day. There has been talk about automating questing, and I believe that you can do it at some point with staked LP tokens, same way that we can do it with the summoning, right?
Yes, that's exactly right.
But have they activated that yet?
Not at this moment in time, but it is a feature that was within the white paper, and they will be releasing.
So at the time of this recording, you won't have auto questing enabled, but sometime in the future it may have. Crafting is another portion of the Bridgeworld game, and probably the most important, because this is where we're creating tools to allow us to earn more magic, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. The crafting allows us to develop other NFTs that eventually are used to access large
greater
stores.
magic emissions.
Excuse me, not only greater magic emissions, but just access large stores of magic that would otherwise be untouched, right?
Yes.
Through the harvester.
Right. And this is where you're going to earn more magic and really reap the rewards of playing this game. Now, each of the crafted items that you get will help you in different ways. Mm-hmm. Prisms will allow you to get rarer summons, which will allow you to create more legions that can potentially be staked for generating more magic. Mm-hmm. But when we talk about harvester parts and extractor parts, those are different ways of earning magic that we really don't know the rules of yet because they haven't been launched.
Precisely. I think the important thing to know about harvesters is they will have a sum of magic that are allocated to essentially a new mine, not the Atlas mine, but a different mine. And the only way to participate in reaping and extracting that magic is by developing and being a participant in the harvester. And I think that there's a few ways to do that, but that's not the purpose of this podcast.
Correct. And so when you craft, it's going to cost you 5 magic to craft, and it doesn't matter what part you're trying to craft, you're always going to have success when you craft that part.
Correct.
And so starting at level 1, you can only craft prisms. Once you get to level 3, you can start to craft harvester parts. And once you get to level 5, you can start crafting extractors. Level 6 is the highest level you can be at for now. And when you craft, you're going to earn crafting points. From levels 1 and 2, you're going to earn 10. From levels 3 and 4, you're going to earn 20. And from levels 5 and 6, you're going to earn 40 crafting points per craft.
So similar to the progression with questing, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Now, when you craft, because it's a 100% success rate, you still have a chance of getting a small, medium, or large drop for prisms and extractor parts. When it comes to harvesters, you're only going to get one part 99.99% of the time. 0.01 time, there is a 0.01% chance to get 2 harvester parts, which I think is a pretty good deal.
Yeah, I would freak out if I got 2.
Now, in crafting, they talk about how harvester parts are used to build one of the 6 foundational harvesters. So there's a finite limit on harvester parts that can be created. What happens to crafting after these parts are created?
That's a good question. Oh, then you would probably move on to extractors, right?
You would move on to extractors, which boost harvester mining power. But maybe it turns out they're going to add more harvesters if this becomes a popular thing. It remains to be seen. We haven't seen all the rules yet for the harvesters.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Now, what does it cost to craft besides the 5 magic? We haven't even touched on this yet. Each part requires a different recipe of treasures. And so this is where the treasure sink comes in. You know, we talked about in questing, you're questing to earn treasures. Here's where you're going to get to use those treasures. For now, there may be other treasure sinks in the future in other games, and we will discuss them on this podcast. But for now, this is the main treasure sink. So in order to create prisms, you're going to need 5 tier 5 treasures, 2 tier 4 treasures, and 1 tier 3 treasures, for a total of 7 treasures. That's pretty significant when you think about it.
Yeah.
To make a harvester part, you're going to need 5 tier 5, 2 tier 4, 3 tier 3, 2 tier 2, and 1 tier 1, for a total of 13 treasures.
Wow.
That's really going to eat into the supply of treasures.
Yeah.
Then for extractor parts, you're going to need 2 tier 2s, 1 tier 3, 3 tier 4s, and 5 tier 5s, for a total of 11 treasures.
Interesting. So extractors are slightly cheaper, even though it takes a higher level to achieve them.
Yes, and I think that the main reason that is because the harvester parts have to come first, because you got to build the harvester for you to even use the extractor.
That makes sense.
And similar to questing, crafting times are split between 24 hours for a prism, 36 hours for a harvester part, and 48 hours for an extractor part. It's funny, it says here success rate of crafting 90%, but at the top it says crafting has a 100% chance of success.
Yes, and that's because it used to be 90%. Again, before the patch notes, and when people weren't crafting really at all, and we had 2 inflationary levers going, and the deflationary lever was pulled in a way, but not necessarily utilized.
Right.
So now they've tweaked things ever so slightly to make this slightly more attractive by decreasing summoning success and increasing crafting success.
Crafting is the backbone of Bridgeworld to creating more wealth for the users. Everything that we do in Bridgeworld is to craft these parts so we can create the harvesters and the extractors. If you want to participate that way, you don't have to do that. You could just quest and sell your legions on the market, or just quest and quest and quest and just sell your treasures on the market. I mean, I feel like that's probably what I would do.
Yeah,
but I'm just a small fish, right? If you're, if you're like really into wanting to do the harvesters, and who knows, it might turn out that the harvester is the way to go, and we might revisit that. But for right now, if I'm just trying to not spend a lot and really kind of create some wealth for myself, I think I'm going to just do the questing so I can earn more treasures and sell them on the market for those who want to do the crafting.
Totally agree. And I think that's playing out by the general population. Again, I don't know if I have those numbers particularly, but
Well,
I think that's what we are seeing.
I think we will definitely see a change when the Harvester is released and people have to really start crafting.
Yeah. I think the rewards for Harvesters are just going to be too juicy for people to pass up. I think it will attract a whole lot of new participants.
I wholeheartedly agree with you.
Yeah, so to be able to participate in any action in the game, you would either need a Legion, or if a Legion is too expensive, to avoid any barriers to entry, the creators have also come up with a really cool, unique solution where you can have a recruit, which only costs 10 magic, and that recruit cannot be traded. But that recruit can go on quests for you, and they can... Well, actually, getting a little bit too far ahead of myself.
You are. Let's talk about the player characters. First off, there's a recruit, but then there are higher level player characters. The Auxiliary Legions, then the Genesis Legions. And there's a very clear distinction between these two. Let's start with the Genesis Legions first, because they will help explain the Auxiliary Legions. Genesis Legions is an all-encompassing term, but there really are 4 different types of Genesis Legions. Do I have that right, or are there more?
There are how many different types?
I said 4, because I think there's the All-Class, the Genesis Commons, the Numeraires, and the Rivermen.
Yes, I would say that it's important to note that like the commons also have
there's also Genesis Legion rares, right?
Yeah, there's also like assassins, spellcasters, and sieges and fighters and ranges. So like there's quite a plethora and stratification of this rarity.
There are 9 different Genesis Legion roles. That's what they call them on the marketplace. You have your all-class, your assassin, your fighter, your numeraire, your ranged, your origin, your riverman, your siege, your spellcaster. I don't like that either.
Well,
I wish they just had a list. Remember we were talking about this the other day?
I think I just posted one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. I would actually say that I think that there's 10, because one of the things that's not listed are the ultra rares, the 5 of 5.
Oh, okay. Perfect. This is where we should have been looking. All right. So first off, there's one unique thing about Genesis Legions, and that is their supply is fixed. Their supply will never increase moving forward. So first off, you have your ultra rares, of which there are 5, and they're 1 of 1s. So there are 5 unique ultra rares. Then there's 38 types of all-class rares, of which there are 271 all-class. I didn't even know there were that many. That's quite a bit.
Yeah, I think that the types have to do with the artwork associated with them. Fairly confident. So like for like numeraire, there are 8 different types, and I think that there are slight deviations in the artwork. But the main difference in that 8 different type would actually be the background color. So for instance, I have a numeraire that's yellow with like background, but there's like lime green and blue and red and I think purple. If that makes sense.
All right, I understand. So we have 271 all-class rares, then there are 50 assassins, 60 spellcasters, 60 sieges, 70 fighters, 130 ranges, which I guess are like maybe shooting a bow and arrow or firing a gun, I guess.
Yeah, they have both, which is kind of cool.
Oh yeah, no, the art is amazing. 540 rivermen, 711 numeraires, which I think is a very interesting number, 711. And then 1,564 commons, 1,564.
Yeah, so that puts the total number of Legion Genesis, which is never increasing, as you mentioned before, at 3,461.
All right.
So there's not a lot.
No, there's not a lot. 3,500 is a small NFT collection.
Super.
Especially Although this one, from a, I guess, characteristic perspective, is kind of limited. Then again, they do have traits, but the traits don't matter as much or aren't as clear right now. That could change in the future.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
We've already covered Genesis Legions, of which supply can never increase. Now let's talk about Auxiliary Legions, which don't have a fixed supply. And there are only 6 of them, correct?
Correct. There are only 6.
But they have a common, an uncommon, and a rare.
Correct. Which is all kind of delineated based on the artwork.
Right. And so you have just a common legion, a siege. Well, no. I guess there's 5, right? There's only 5 because they're all common legions, no?
That's a really good point. I think that what's on their website is slightly outdated because, and this might be a little bit too specific or granular, but there were common legions before Bridgeworld came into being, like before they wrote the code, etc. And then they went on the pilgrimage where they gained a class.
Right.
Again,
and now they're called auxiliary commons, auxiliary uncommons, and auxiliary rares.
Yeah, precisely. And of which there are 5 classes.
Right. So you have siege, ranged, fighter, assassin, and what is the 5th?
Spellcaster, which was I think Spellcaster is the most sought after for some reason.
I don't have any spellcasters.
Same. But they've all evened out. We've done away with stratifying or pricing them according to their class, which is good.
We've got our Genesis Legions, we've got our Aux Legions, and we talked about the recruit a little bit. We talked about treasures in a bunch of the different segments before this, but we haven't really talked about the treasures themselves.
Yeah.
And there are 5 different tiers of treasures. Tier 5 being the most common, not very exciting stuff like halfpenny and emerald and dragon tail. Then we have tier 4, which get a little better. Donkeys are very popular, grain, blue rupees. Then we get into tier 3, which you have the likes of Score of Ivory and Jar of Fairies and Favor of Gods, which is one of my favorites. And then we have tier 2s, which get a little more exciting. The Divine Hourglass, the Snow White Feather, the Bag of Mushrooms. And finally, we have tier 1. But we'll note that there are 2 at tier 1, one called a Grin and the other called a Honeycomb, which are labeled as special treasures because they won't ever be created through questing, correct?
Correct. You can view them as the Legion Genesis of the treasures.
That's a great way to describe it. Now, there's also categories of these treasures: alchemy, arcana, enchanting, brewing, leatherworking, and smithing.
Yeah.
But right now, that has no bearing on Bridgeworld gameplay at this time.
Correct.
But all these treasures exist. They're all traded on the marketplace, and they all have value in one way or another, whether it's through crafting or through improving the emissions of the Atlas mine through staking. And we're going to get into that in a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I guess I just have like a philosophical question. Like, when you think of treasures, like I kind of think about these as like the building blocks of the world in a lot of ways. Treasures were like, right, weren't they like the first NFT? And they're kind of what everything has been built around. And as a result, like,
you know what? I would love to start with that because I felt like I was very low energy talking about those tiers, and it was really nagging on me, and I love what you're suggesting. So let's start with that.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. The final piece of let's see. We've already covered Legions. Now let's talk about the other NFTs in Bridgeworld treasures. Mm-hmm. And really, treasures should have been the start of this because we haven't really covered the origins of this whole ecosystem, and it starts with treasures.
Yeah, that's right. For all of you who remember loot, treasures were minted in the same exact fashion on the Ethereum blockchain as a set of words on a black background.
You can still buy some of them, can't you, on OpenSea?
Yeah, you can. There will be, for all of you speculators out there will be an eventual migration at some point in the future. You can quote me on that.
What's the floor right now? 13 Ethereum. Excuse me, 0.13 Ethereum.
I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, no, 0.13 Ethereum. That's actually not too bad.
It's not bad at all. I mean, because you're buying a bundle of them, right? You're not just buying a single. Yeah.
Let's see the highest. Let's see the highest right now.
It's probably. Well, we haven't talked about the tiers of treasures, but I would imagine it probably is a grin or a honeycomb. Or maybe one that has like a bunch of high tier treasures.
Yeah, there's one with a grin at 20 ETH, but it's not the highest.
Interesting.
But it drops off really quickly.
Yeah, I bet.
There's only maybe 25 before you get below 1 ETH.
Interesting.
Yeah, but even so.
Some potential arbitrage depending on how patient of a trader you are.
Right. Well, let's get into it. Treasures. You mentioned it. There are different tiers, and we've also talked about it in other segments in this episode. Dion, what's your favorite tier?
Obviously, I love tier 1, but I would even say there's like an S tier within a tier 1, and that is the grin and the honeycomb. You can view them as the Legion Genesis of the treasure NFTs. They are a fixed supply, and in no world, in no way will you be able to increase their supply like any other T1 treasures or T1 to T5 treasures, to be more specific.
Sorry, I'm actually buying a treasure right now.
The first ever live podcast buy. I love it.
There's an unbreakable pocket watch at 0.15 ETH. It's not that bad.
Let me convert unbreakable pocket watch. Where is it?
No, I'm looking for the Bridgeworld guide myself.
Yeah. Unbreakable pocket watch that's a T3 treasure. Let me convert this to ETH. 0.185 ETH. That's a great deal.
Bingo.
Nice. Okay, so it's a unbreakable pocket watch plus others, right?
Plus others, yeah. Red rupee, donkey, 2 silver pennies, common relic.
Okay, that's a good. I mean, as of right now, assuming these prices either stay constant or the price of an unbreakable pocket watch increases from now, you just made a great trade.
Right. We'll track how that goes. Ooh, there's information released about harvesters. Tattoos. Excuse me. We'll look at it later.
Interesting. But back to treasures. I kind of view these guys as to your point, they're the first thing that were minted. So I view them as like the building blocks of the world. They're from what everything has like flown out of, and as a result, like it. Not only do I want to be having a lot of treasures, but if I'm like a new project that wants to build with Bridgeworld and the Magic ecosystem, I want to be incorporating treasures into my ecosystem as well.
Right. And that's the key, because we're going to have so many treasures being created through questing that you're going to need some way of using them, creating value out of them.
Yeah, exactly. And so not only if I'm like a builder, a dev who wants to participate in this ecosystem, not only am I including magic, but I'm also kind of utilizing the composable ecosystem that they have and saying, oh, you have this existing NFT with a decent sized supply that I can easily incorporate into my NFT project, which not only gets current users in, but it also allows their own following to be involved with Bridgeworld. So you can see how this is like a positive loop to get more and more people involved.
For sure. Now, do we know what the supplies of all the treasures are? We're going to have to pull that information for the users, for the listeners, but I definitely want to be able to talk about it. Right now, there's probably over 50,000 treasures in the ecosystem, correct? Or is it even more than that?
I would say that's a pretty good guess. I don't know what the original number was, but I mean, it's been going up ever since questing has been turned on. So, I mean, again, questing is an inflationary lever. These treasures won't stop being produced, which is, again, is not necessarily a bad thing. These treasures may be in less demand now compared to the supply, but I could see in as little as 1 or 2 months from now, with how many people that want to build with treasure, that could be reversed very quickly.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I really think that there's a great opportunity to create value out of these treasures. Or maybe the supply doesn't need to decrease. Maybe we just need more uses for them. And then naturally they'll have value because they'll be used or destroyed.
Yeah, precisely. So let's talk about some of the uses for treasures. I think one of them that we could discuss is the Atlas mine, which effectively takes them out of circulating supply.
Correct. And I think that warrants a larger conversation because treasures aren't the only item that affects the Atlas mine, correct?
Yeah, no, that you're right. You can also stake legions. A lot, I would say.
Right. So at best guess right now, there are maybe about 100,000 treasures in the ecosystem, and they're probably the cheapest method of getting into Magic right now because you can buy a tier 5 treasure for less than 10 Magic at today's prices when this podcast was recorded. But it's a good opportunity to get your feet wet if you're thinking about getting Magic. It's definitely the spot to be in. Now, let's talk about this Atlas mine and the staking percentages, because we haven't really touched on this, and I think it's the most important piece of the entire ecosystem because when you have these treasures, you're staking your Magic, you have these legions, you can stake your legions, you can stake your treasures, they increase your emissions percentage when you're staking your Magic, but only when you're staking your Magic, and you have to lock them into the Atlas mine along with your Magic. The good thing is that they don't get locked as long as your Magic does. However, you still have to lock them up, which will not only take them out of the ecosystem, but prevent them from being a productive asset for you.
Precisely. So again, it's another decision that you, as the player, need to make. What am I going to do with my treasures?
Right.
Do you have any staked, Breaker?
Yes, I do have some treasures staked, and I'm going to tell you what they are right now. Find the Atlas mine that I have. Explore Bridgeworld, please. My throat is getting scratchy. Talking a lot. All right, I have 5 treasures staked.
5, dude. Underutilized.
Yeah. I have a Divine Hourglass, a Favor of the Gods, a Grin, a Snow White Feather, and an Unbreakable Pocket Watch. And together, I'm earning almost 40% NFT boost on my staked Magic.
Oh, rookie numbers, dude. I got 13 bags of mush. You can call me the mush man. I have 6 carriages and 1 Grin. So that's me 132%.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up because I do have all these treasures that are just sitting here. I should probably be depositing them right now.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not planning on selling them, that is, which is totally fine if you aren't.
Well, I'm not trying to sell them right now. I feel like they're going to go up before they go down. So I definitely going to...
I agree.
Stake my donkey over here. I can't believe I just bought that treasure bag.
Yeah, but we'll see how it plays out. For all you listeners at home, this will be a weekly pod update.
Right.
We'll chart
I love it. Proverbial bow on this entire intro to treasure episode. First off, you want to go to startwithmagic.com. That's going to be your main resource. You're going to get all the information. The other place that I'd love to recommend you go is to read the treasure docs, and we'll put the links in the show notes, but the treasure docs are definitely filled with tons of information. That's really where we got all the information for this cast from. And then also, shout out again to the One Discord, our home away from home. We have a dedicated treasure channel. You're going to always find some really great information in the One Discord. So feel free to join us over there. We hang out in there all the time.
Yeah, please come through.
And that concludes another episode of Magic Hour, friends. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe to our YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you can listen to your podcasts. You can also follow us on Twitter at Magic Hour Pod. All the links are found on our link tree, which is in the show notes. From all of us, we appreciate your support for Bridgeworld.